you've got two jobs, and it's really one job. It's to make great music and put it in front of people. And I feel like every single day, if I'm doing that, the luck kind of takes care of itself. That manifestation takes care of itself.
That's Brian KM. He is, as far as I know, the only full-time electronic French horn player on the planet. Maybe there's more, let me know if there are. But this interview dives deep with him on both how he has broken out of the classical box as a former military band player to hone his craft, and also the principles and operating system that have guided his career as a musical entrepreneur. It's been super fruitful and insightful for me. I walked away from this conversation immediately making new opportunities for myself and generating some yeses, if you will. It's also already impacted my students. So I hope that you listen with fresh ears and open mind and get as inspired as I was by this interview. I'm Mars Gelfo. This is the Holistic Horn Podcast. I want to keep this intro brief so that we can get straight into the good stuff. Enjoy this podcast with Brian KM. Brian KM, I'm absolutely delighted to have you on the Holistic Horn Podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You're actually one of the very first people that's ever reached out to me and said, "Hey, I like what you do, and I think I might be a good guest for the podcast." And of course, I'd seen your stuff on Instagram and was like, "Yeah, duh, this is obvious. You were already on my list." Thank you for that.
uh, I'm glad I was able to initiate that. I feel like um, I like I love the idea of just there's so many things just sitting there waiting to happen. And what I've learned in my career is so often it's just like this one little step that you have to take, and then poof, it happens.
And to me, now that I know you a little bit more, this is reflective of how you've built your career and some really core values that you stand for around proactivity, can-do attitude, making things happen.
I was blown away the first time. So when you're doing a recital or a show, there's kind of I talk to people about how there's a spectrum of being presented versus presenting yourself. Somebody's doing the presenting, and it's either some conglomerate or a building or something, or it's you that's presenting yourself. And I do both types. But the first time I presented myself, I was super scared, and it's really scary. But then, kind of right before the show, I was like, I just wrote an email to a venue and said, "Hi, I have this many dollars. Can I go play in your space on Friday?" Like 10, 30 Fridays from now. And they're like, "Yes, it costs this much." And then I emailed a bunch of people and said, "Hey, will you buy a ticket to this thing?" It was just, it blew my mind at how easy it was. Even though it was terribly scary, it was stupid easy to just show up and do the little thing. And as I've gone on, it's just been, okay, what's just the little thing that I have to do to get this ball rolling on this opportunity? And it doesn't always work. People say no to me all the time. But then I just ask the next thing. The world is so huge and full of people who are doing things or not doing things. And you can just say, "Hey, let's do this thing together." And then boom, you've got it happening.
Yeah, and you've built an extraordinary, unique career as a horn player. I wonder if we could start by outlining gigs, shows, things that you have done as a professional musician in the last few months, as an example.
I think about this kind of statement, and a lot of times I say it jokingly, but other times I try to say it really seriously. And it's that every moment of every decision you've ever made and everything you've ever done has led you to this point. Um, and sometimes it's really funny, like you're sitting in traffic or you drop your sandwich on your lap and you go, "Everything I've ever done has left me to having egg salad in my lap right now." But the serious, meaningful one is everything I've ever done has led me to now talking to you, surrounded by all of this DJ equipment that you can't even see. And that's kind of the end of the story. The end of the story is I'm Brian KM and I play French horn and make sounds with my computer. And that's kind of the thing. So with that work, I have been in Australia, Canada, the United States, basically showing people what you can do with French horn and live electronics. I have a lot of story-based shows. My favorite one right now is the Stan Effect, which is about my computer. His name's Stan. He's right there, Stan. And
Hi,
then
Stan.
I'm I'm writing a show right now called Color Kinematics, which is very ethereal. I've done refractography, which is photography of glass in pitch black conditions with a single light source. And I'm going to be manipulating those pixels live with much more spatial, ethereal, atmospheric music with the horn and again the electronics and live feedback manipulation. And I'm gonna be taking that show. I'm premiering that show in now 24 days. Before that, I was the principal horn for the United States Pacific Fleet Band, where you are in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, or close to where you are. And I was the brass quintet player for the majority of my work there. I was doing around 150 to 200 gigs a year with that group, and I loved them so much. I had so much fun with them. It was such a treat. I feel like I caught lightning in a bottle with those four friends of mine. In the brass quintet, we did a lot of pops. We did a lot of brass quintet rep. We went to a ton of schools, and we did the working group thing too. We did the ceremonies and the funerals and all that,
Mm.
which was a phenomenal breadth of experience that I loved. Traveled a lot. I've been to Alaska a tremendous amount of times. And then before that, it was undergrad and grad school. I was the guy who raised his hand for the new music thing. It was, oh, we're doing this, black turtleneck, plinky music. Yes, I'll do it. And I was the guy that quickly got asked not to do the Mozart because I was doing the plinky stuff a lot more often. And that's what I've been doing. I go to the orchestra. Sometimes I try to be on the sub lists where I am. Love me some chamber music, just as much chamber music as I can find and do. I love doing that. That was why I loved the Navy band so much.
Thank you for sharing. This is, I'm personally curious, and I'm sure that the audience is going to be curious. What are actual shows, engagements, teaching? Like, what's brought in your revenue as a performing musician?
So the most stable income that I have is teaching. And my students find me, or my students find me through the regular channels that students find teachers. They Google, they ask around who's in town, they find them. Quite a few of my students have seen me play. They went to Melbourne Fringe, or they went to Adelaide Fringe, or they went to the independent shows that I do, and they said, this guy plays French horn in a way that I think is really cool, and I want to study with him. Like other gigs I do, I just played. I have this work for orchestra called Rain that I wrote for French horn and electronics and orchestra. So French horn and electronics being one instrument, and orchestra being the other instrument. And that's a work I did with the Victorian Youth Symphony, and then we had it written for a concert band premiere with the Melbourne Rainbow Band. I did that. Speaking of the Rainbow Band, I'm the artistic director of the Rainbow Band, so I do that on Thursday nights. And really, my day, how I introduce myself to the Rainbow Band is I spend all day either doing music or talking about music. So today is Tuesday, for example. So I woke up and fought with microphones, and now I'm talking to you about music. And then later on today, I have a new pedal for the show. I have a new button that I'm going to be
Oh,
using to trigger something very specific during the show. And I'll be programming that and practicing that part of the show, and then the emails and admin. Tomorrow, I teach my students basically all day. And then the next day, I'll work with the Rainbow Band. And then Friday, I'll be back into working on the show again. I have an independent show coming up in a couple of weeks. So as part of that, I do the photography, the refractography. I do the marketing for that, and I do the the actual performance of
Mm.
that. So I'll be doing
Mm.
that. And then the rest of it is reaching out and doing things. So I haven't not had a project coming up in, it's been a long time. I've always had something. So right now, the furthest show I have ahead booking is in October of next year. So 11 months from now. And I'm talking to venues about 2027, the first half of that year. So I always have something. So with all of that, you end up filling your time pretty well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. A few things pop out to me. One is a desire for those listening. I think this episode is probably going to center around alternative or unique careers for brass players.
Yeah.
So I feel like sharing for contrast and similarity what my last, say, month has been like. And then I have a question for you about magic and manifestation. So let's bookmark that question. So my last month, similar to you, it's like a few different projects. My teaching provides my most stable revenue through my online school, High Range Magic, and I teach twice a week for that. I played as a sub with Oakland Symphony towards the beginning of the month. I played one show with a Indian fusion jazz band, and then I played a show with Jacob Collier, and now I have a concerto and premiere of a piece written for me in Hawaii. And I don't really have any big projects after that, unlike you. But that you're making me think like, yeah, I love having projects to drive my practice. It sounds like you're similar. Like if I don't have a project, I don't know what to practice or how to practice. I don't feel motivated.
Yeah, I I have like two different types of practice. I have the practice of, it's like sheet music practice, and I have electronics practice. And my sheet music practice is pretty like driven by the needs of what I've been hired to do. So I got last year I got hired to do a bunch of French chamber music, and that was
Oh.
okay, Brian, you got to go figure out how to play like this for this particular week. And I was working on lip trills really quietly and super soft stop entrances and things like that. And that's just not work I have to do in electronics. Whereas my electronics work is okay, Brian, you have to stand on one foot while circular breathing and doing this other thing while hitting a synthesizer with your elbow. Like that's a totally different way to do it. So in I feel like in writing my electronic shows, practice occurs. And then when I'm doing chamber music or orchestral music, that's very driven by the next
Hmm.
thing on the pipelines. It's funny how we get, I don't want to say mindless because that's not very nice to say, and I don't like how mean we are sometimes, but how anti mindful we get sometimes because I've done a number of brass quintet gigs this year for various things, various organizations, various groups. And I just hadn't remembered them. And what a shame that I let that joy go. I'm not remembering
Mm,
those. But that's the
mm.
same thing of, okay, well, we're playing a brass quintet. I remember I really suffered. And if you spent a lot of time in Hawaii, or if you spend too much time in Hawaii, it'll happen to you too. I played this brass quintet gig shortly after I moved from Hawaii in a cold church. It must have been like 55 degrees in this church, and I completely imploded. Just
Yeah.
completely could not feel my face, could not feel my hands, just way too cold. So I'm looking forward to moving back to Hawaii so I can actually feel my hands again and be warm. If I decided to like record something, I can be pretty self-motivated and work through that,
Mhm.
but it's helpful to have a gig coming up where you don't want to let down your friends that you're sitting next to.
So this dovetails into my question about magic and manifestation. We haven't talked about metaphysics at all, but I assume you're at least familiar with the idea of manifestation and reality creation, things
A little
popping
bit,
up
a little bit.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you find that things just kind of occur for you serendipitously? Like for me, I had this Jacob Collier thing. It happened at the same time that my Indian fusion band got booked for a gig, which doesn't happen more than 5, 6 times a year.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh no, I'm going to be playing at a symphony. I want to be warmed up. And Oakland Symphony reaches out and says, hey, can you come sub literally 2 weeks before your Jacob Collier show. It's like that for me, and that all led up to the concerto. It was like this perfect crescendo. Does that happen for you as well?
And when you put it that way, I don't often think of it that way. I have a pretty um forward way of going out about my gigs, and I tend to make them.
Uh,
So the calendar's somewhat full of me saying, "Hey, I think we're a good fit," and
uh,
then doing that thing. Yeah, every once in a while, I feel like the, kind of the layman's way of talking about it is luck a little bit,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I've always found that my job is to try to be as ready as I can for the luck. Because it might
Uh,
come and it might not. And if I'm working on the show and I'm consistently playing the horn and I'm a big fan of this person, Megan Enan, in
yeah.
Louisiana, who, I don't know if you know Megan Enan. Hi Megan, you're amazing.
I don't, but you
Megan
mentioned that
Enan,
you've worked with her.
she's incredible. I
Yeah.
just think she's the boss and does everything. But she said, Brian, you've got two jobs, and it's really one job. It's to make great music and put it in front of people. And I feel like every single day, if I'm doing that, the luck kind of takes care of itself. That manifestation takes care of itself. So I try to way back in undergrad, and I apologize to your listeners because I do this, and it makes me a really good electronic musician and maybe not the best storyteller or podcast guest. But way back in undergrad, way I was I was the Air Force band came to my school and blew my mind, and I was particularly impressed with the horn players. And I wrote on a sticky note that night, Air Force horn player, and I put it on the mirror where I look at myself when I brush my teeth.
Uh-huh.
And I just every day for like a year, I just said, I'm not an Air Force horn player, but today I'm going to behave like one. So all I was doing, I was running, doing push ups, and practicing my French horn. And that really just took my ability on the horn and a little bit my running ability and just shot it straight up. And then later on, when I was doing grad school auditions, it was that effort kind of created its own way. So I feel like you talk about manifestation, I talk about fundamentals, and I just tell my students, fundies don't change. And if you, like Megan said, if you try to make great music and put it in front of people and do that every day, every single day, if you're doing a little bit of that, I think the rest a lot of times takes care of itself. I had a band director who said 80% of life is showing up on time wearing the right clothes. So if you do that and then also try to make great art and put it in front of people, the rest is finds its way in a lot of situations.
You just summarized my recurring musician's nightmare of showing up late in the wrong clothes.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually woke up in the middle of the night worried that I had gotten the time zone wrong for this interview.
Yeah, it's like a chat GPT horn in your hands that has no mouthpiece that you can't figure out. Do you teach your students? Do you have horn players that are learning the ways of electronics and horn and that whole thing with you?
I do. I have a couple of people. Sometimes I get reached out to, and like someone's very interested in getting kind of into the electronics and see what it's all about. I was just talking to a New Zealand horn player about that. I have a student locally here who's working on that and trying to figure out. And so much of teaching electronics is there's a thousand ways to play the French horn, but ultimately you got to blow in the right end and make your lips do the flappy thing, and then you got to put the hand in the other end. And like that's kind of we have kind of rules that we go about. Electronics is so there are a thousand ways to do one thing. Like if you could say to me, "Hey, I want you to do a C that sounds like a piano," and I could do it over there, and I could do it over there, and I could do it over there, and I could program a synthesizer that could do it, and I could play the French horn and then modify it to sound like there are a thousand billion ways to do one thing. So electronic teaching is so vast in terms of well,
Hmm.
what do you want to do? And how do you like working with technology? If you don't like working with technology, you should just not. So my lessons so much are, well, what do you want to do? And how maybe what is the path forward for you to do that, to come close to that, to look that up. And then it's we define our search terms and then go off together separately to go figure out, okay, well, you need to look up hardware reverbs that go into software synthesizers that pair with scene changing. And then it's okay, well, we can do that. Or, oh, we need to do live looping with tracks instead of devices, and that changes the whole way of interfacing. And I've spent my years of it's coming up on 6 years of me doing this now. Of I have the Brian Cam way of interfacing with the technology, and it's getting better and better every day. And this new show has modifications to that. And really, teaching electronics has been about how to help the person figure out how they approach it. And now that I'm saying that out loud, that's very much what horn teaching is like too. How do you go home and do that? I have students who need lesson logs. They just desperately need lesson logs. That's who they are. Um, I went through phases when I was a student, still a student. I went through phases where I needed lesson logs, and then I needed to not have lesson logs, and I needed to spam scales all day. And it's the teaching process has been about finding out, well, what is it? How are you going to best relate to the work in the way that's most harmonious to you? If you're like the Airbenders fan, the Avatar
Yeah.
fan, that the I keep thinking about the scene, the Be the Leaf,
Hmm.
like so. You go forwards in your horn playing or your electronics teaching, and you see that like a block of it's like oh, I don't like menu diving, and it's like oh, I can do this other thing, and then oh
Right.
well, this stinks. Sometimes you have to bless through the thing, but that's why you're the avatar.
You're making me think of something else that you said, which is that you consider yourself a world-class problem solver of going to the sticking point and finding your way around, through, above, below those sticking points. How has that been for you? Do you feel like that was something you were born with? Is it something you've cultivated, somewhere in between?
Oh gosh, I don't know where that comes from. I can kind of I can explain it more, and maybe that'll buy me time to think of an answer, which is a solution on its own.
There you
I
go.
used when you go to the beach, and you can do this study later this afternoon. You go to the beach and you dig a hole that's like if the tide is coming in, you dig a hole before the tide arrives. It is impossible to build a wall big enough to prevent ocean water from getting into that hole. You just can't do it. Um, and I try to be the ocean, not the wall builder, because you can't build a wall that's tall enough and deep enough and wide enough to stop every force. Have just had this, I don't even know if it's a personality trait. It's more of like an attitude that I've adopted of, I just don't believe that as many things we say are impossible are.
I'm still chewing on what you said about being the ocean rather than being the.
Like if I'm the ocean, like because like the wave will come, and if you've built the wall super high, right, the ocean will go around. And if you build the wall super wide, the ocean will go over. And if you build the wall like wide and tall, the ocean will eventually just keep hitting it, and then eventually it'll wear down. So that attitude of just continuing to try, maybe that's something I learned as a kid. you know, I play tennis a lot, so there is that element of you're on the court and, well, the next point's coming and it's only you back here, so you're going to have to figure it out. There's some of that. I was a camping kid, so there's that element of being in the wilderness and you have to figure that out. I just think it's so empowering. The world's scary, like you look at the economy, you look at AI, you look at other people, and when I spend a lot of time thinking about it, you just want to curl up in the fetal position sometimes because it is frightening. But then if you look at all of the things that you can control, it's a vast amount of things.
Yeah.
And it has a profound impact. If you look at what you were saying about manifestation earlier, I've never talked about it. I should read more about manifestation because I've never thought about it that way. I just it's kind of, as I've done electronics now. um I remember the first. I have a wonderful electronics teacher named Heath. He's a Australian DJ living in Spain, and he's incredible. And I will ask him. I'll just say this, oh Heath, I'm frustrated that every time I do the echo pedal and then change tempo at the same time, it does this. And he'll go, oh, you need to do this. He always has the answer. And there was one time when he didn't have the answer, and then he just programmed something to make it better. And it's
Yeah.
just he just has this and he's so different to me. I'm pretty this way. He's like a martial arts master of just that unbelievable confidence of knowing that he can do anything. Yeah, I think he is magic. I think he has just that depth of knowledge in electronics that he can just do things. He can just decide to manifest, to just create reality the
Mm,
way he wants. He like
mm,
Thanos with the reality stone.
mm.
Um, and I just think that when you look at all of the things that you can control, the world gets a lot less scary.
So what's a practical life example from your history of a problem that you've been the ocean on, and what did that look like?
I have this is maybe one of my controversial takes. I believe fundamentally, and I've said this on a stage. I remember most prominently people gasped. I said this at Eastern Michigan University. Hi, Eastern Michigan folks. I'm going to say it again. Um, Everybody deserves a no. You are a big enough name. I'm talking to you right now. You are a big enough name that you deserve a no, and no one is a big enough name that they shouldn't give you one. If someone is so ungodly busy that they're getting 10,000 pitches a day, they should hire a couple of people. Like that's what that is. So I have this belief that everybody owes me a no. It takes 2 seconds to say, hey, your work seems really cool. It's not a great fit for me. Best of luck to you. It's so easy, and they make like email templates that you can just write that down and say, "Hi, thanks so much for this. It's not a great fit. Best of luck to you." So I did a residency. I was pitching a tour. This was a tour I went on last year. I toured 13 weeks last year. I can't remember what time of year it was. I'm sorry. But I wrote to this school, and I really thought it was a good fit. And I wrote to them again, and I wrote to them again. I wrote to them 8 times, Mars. 8 emails I sent because I think it was like five that I was just like, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna do this every 2 weeks. I'm just
They
gonna send
hadn't
another one.
replied.
No, they had not replied. They had just not said
Okay.
anything, and I was just like, I'm gonna just keep sending the email, because I've gone on tour a few times, and I had just won this award, for this thing. I was like, I think that I deserve this no, and a week after the eighth email, I got hired for a multi-day residency. They just wrote back and said, "Hey, your stuff looks great. Loved your website. We'd like you to hire you for like nearly everything you do." And I was just like, "What?" Like it was this, and that was such a, oh my god! Like you can just, and then I kind of interrogated that a little bit. Like, well, why did that? What was I thinking actually? Because a lot of times people, especially me, says stuff and then that's not what they actually think. They haven't interrogated enough. So I really interrogated it, and it was, I kind of separated it into possibilities. I was like, so I mean, one of the possibilities is that the email address doesn't work. Like that's one of them. And if that's the case, no one's harmed by this. The second one
Hmm.
is they were never going to hire me, and they will certainly get mad that I keep emailing. In which case, it's on them to email me and say no, and then they won't be mad anymore. And if they do get mad, they were never going to hire me anyway. People are so absorbed in their own business, which is often a good thing. No one is going to get a pitch email from me and call their buddy at some other institution that I'm also writing to and say, "Oh yeah, this Brian KM, he writes polite emails and then sends them again. What a jerk. You shouldn't hire. No one's going to do that. So they were never going to hire me anyway. And if they don't get mad, they don't have any power over me. And then the last bit was maybe they'll hire me. Those are the only three realities that I can think of, which means that the only choice is to send the other email. Like that's the answer. And it was just that was a major like clarifying opportunity. The other one was just do the stupid thing. I just hosted a studio class here in town. I was terrified. I put because it wasn't a show, and I don't really do shows. And I just booked a hall. I booked one of the halls that I liked playing in as an electronics player. Um, I wrote to them. I said I'm doing a studio class. It's a community event. They gave me a community event rate. And then I wrote to all my students and I said, hey, I'm doing the studio class. We haven't talked about it, but five of you come, I'd really like that. And six people came and paid some money that I made some money and paid for the hall. And we had such a lovely event. And I was kicking myself because I was thinking, God, I've wanted to do this for years. And now I'm
Mm.
leaving town and I could have been doing this the whole time. And my students loved it. They said, we have to have another one. This was such a great event.
Well, sorry for the interruption, but if you are a horn player and you struggle with high range, confidence, accuracy, consistency, or endurance, this is of interest to you. I am still running my program High Range Magic that has offered profound transformation to folks that want to unlock the high range and all of its benefits. There is a masterclass linked below that you can watch for free, 100% free, 3 Secrets of High Playing. After you watch the masterclass, you'll have an option to book a no-cost one-on-one consult with me if you're interested in finding out more about the program. That's all for now. Back to the episode.
Just I've long since left your question behind, but it's just this attitude of just do the stupid little thing because the negative consequences are just dramatically smaller than Lizard Brain imagines.
It's that I
Yeah.
100% agree with. Also, hi, kitty cat. Just um, they always find the right place, right? Sounds like you booked the venue, you committed yourself financially before you had any validation that you were going to be recompensated, that you were going to make money. Have there been any times when you've taken an action, a bold action like that, and just, dropped some hundreds, thousands of dollars on something and it just, whoops, it hasn't worked out? Or do you try to de-risk things before?
Thousands, no. Hundreds, yes. And the hundreds that I've lost, I've done shows that haven't made any money. Um,
Hmm.
I've never done a show that I haven't gotten anything from. Because
Mm.
I will do a show and if it's gonna, I don't have a better word, flop. We'll call it a flop. You know that the investment is not going to financially return a while before you actually have to do it. And then you have a couple of choices. You cancel the thing, and then you just have to, if no one's bought a ticket, canceling the thing doesn't mean anything. And no one, and like kind of to tie it back to the earlier thing, no one's online. I think if there are, please comment and send me an email because I'd love to hear from you. No one's going, heh, heh, heh. Brian K.M. planned a show and he had to cancel it because not enough tickets were bought. I'm so pleased by this. Like no one thinks this way. Like that's why
You're
no one does
reading
this.
my mind right now. I just did a master class in Houston that I was like, should I cancel this? I only had a few people sign up, and I was like, no, it's going to be so embarrassing if I cancel it. People. So that's actually
No one cares.
yeah,
Like no
you're
one,
completely right.
and yeah, like no one's thinking about this. So you could cancel, which really makes sense. And if you go, um, I, I can think of one show that um, I don't want to dox them. It was a partnership organization that I had done a show with. And this was before I really understood how to market myself, well for live shows. I've since gotten a little better, and I didn't really understand the presenting presenter relationship yet. I think there were like four people at this show. It was a pretty big loss. But I knew kind of 2 days before I was like, oh, we're not getting there. and I just set up my phone. I borrowed a phone and I set up phones so I could tape it, so I could get some video evidence that I played a show and that I perform.
Mm.
And then what I did is we got rid of all the chairs except for the people who came, and we like brought them pretty close to me. And I switched. I played seated, and normally I play standing. In 99% of instances, I play standing. Um, and I played seated for this one. And I just said, I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit, and we're going to just do a really intimate show. And we'll chat and we'll get to know each other. And I kind of switched my mindset from concert to like guided chef tasting. Because these guided chef tastings, by definition, they can't have a lot of people, but they're still having great events. Um, and I just tried to be like that and just kind of get to know the audience members. And then I worked the vibe, and I think this was a little bit of luck, maybe a little bit of manifestation. The audience members were really great, and because what you don't want is for them to have a bad time, like feeling like, oh, I'm one of
Yeah,
three
totally.
people. This sucks. So I feel like everything you do, uh, I've just never done anything where I'm like, that was just I've never not been able to find some positive in something I've
Yeah.
done. And
Yeah.
that's not to say I did a show. They hadn't given me a sound check. I paid the price for not having the sound check. Played real bad. A major symphony player in that town walked out during that show. I was super embarrassed. And I've never wanted to quit, but from that show, I was like, I wanted to say, I had the sentence written, you know how like you have the thing that you're going to say, and it was, hey folks, I really appreciate you coming back out. I wanted to let you know that this is the last Brian Cam show ever. Best best of luck. I did that show, wanted to go home and cry. The next day I had a show, the next town over, and an audience member came up to me and he said, I saw you yesterday and it was just so great, and I just had to come to this one too. I'm so glad I got to see you twice. And I was just like, oh, I have no idea what's going on. I just have no idea. I need to go back to what Megan said, keep trying, putting in front of people, let the rest take care of itself. I'm not smart enough to handle this. Like, you're not smart enough to make your own calls like this. You got to just pedal the bike. It's like those bike races. Those
Yeah.
guys don't have a thought in their brains. They have a radio from a team that knows everything. If you ever watch those F1, the Formula One videos, they have an engineer in their head that's telling them how to drive. Like, that's
Um,
it's so straightforward.
To reaffirm that, just mentioning times that we perform and then want to go home and cry, I actually did go home and cry after my Hong Kong Philharmonic audition final round. I left the audition. I went back to my hotel room. I turned off my phone. I had a long cry, took a nap, woke up, and there was a voicemail from the principal horn saying, "Thank you for taking the audition. Give us a call back. I just wanted to talk to you about the audition when." And I woke up and I heard the voice memo. Okay, I'll call this guy. And he gets on the phone and he says, "We thought you played really well, and I would like to offer you the job." And and I go, "This is the cruelest joke ever. How could you?" And, and he's like, "Well, we don't have to offer you the job if you don't if you don't want it, but this isn't a joke. We're offering you the job."
Oh my gosh.
But I want to segue into Megan Enan. You've mentioned that name a couple times. It sounds like she's
Ah,
been
yeah.
extremely important for you. I haven't heard of her until I Googled her today. Tell us a little bit about Megan Enan. What's her superpower and what have you learned from her? What can our audience learn from you?
Well, I can tell you what she does for me. She's my business teacher. I have talked to her on and off for a while. I've not seen her for like 6 months now. I should give her a call. But she is the most knowledgeable and practical coach I've ever spoken to, even tangentially.
And she
Um,
specializes in
sh
musicians and creatives, right?
yeah. She's I call her business opera lady. She's a singer. She runs this group called Neonautica right now, which is saxophone and live electronics and voice. She is doing all this cool modern music. She's an incredible. She's just a force. Her vibe is, I'm wearing pink pants. But her vibe is like so flowers and pink and just it's she's so bright. She is bright
Um,
smart, she is bright personality, and I think that you should call her. That's the end of that. She has a keen understanding of the industry and structuring ways of
hmm.
building stuff. I think my success, if I have any, is mine. I've worked really hard, but a lot of the things I know have come direct from her because she kind of, either because she's a brilliant teacher and knows how to find the student where they're at and then work with them, or because she and I are just kind of naturally aligned. I don't know which one it is. But she says stuff on her podcast or on her Instagram, and I'm just like, that's what I think, just better articulated. And then it having that like almost creates a permission structure to do
Right.
that.
And what's a tangible way that she's helped you through a particular situation or stumbling block in your career? What did that look like?
I mean, she did the mechanics of helping me learn how to write a pitch email. So I'll come with like really spiky thoughts, and there's like little threads jutting out in every direction, and I have this ball that's full of spikes, and I'm like, this is a mess, and it hurts to hold. And she'll either through sanding things down or filling things in help smoothen that ball a little bit. I think that she helps me articulate what I'm thinking in a way that just helps me needle the way I need to go. I'll tell you something she prevented me from doing. I I I struggle to record my music. I don't like recording. I don't believe it or not. I don't like recording. I like performing live. I think the horn is best consumed live. I think electronics are best consumed live. I really like my live work. So I struggle to do um, work online. My plan for 2026 is to fix that. I'm going to try to release color kinematics in a series of singles. I kind of saw one of these Instagram threads that was talking about Spotify and how bad it is and how evil it is. And I've done a lot of advocacy in my career. I was a sexual assault victim advocate in the Navy, and I kind of want to be part of the change that's positive. And I wrote to her and I said, I'm getting really hung up on all this Spotify stuff, and it's making me feel bad. And you're telling like I want to have my music accessible. I love meeting someone at the airport and they're like, "Oh, can you tell me about?" And I show them my Spotify. Like, I love having that, but I don't want to be a part of the problem. And she wrote back, and I'll paraphrase, Brian, this is your impact on Spotify is low. Your negative endorsement of Spotify will also have a low impact. Your job is to make great music and put it in front of people. That is where the people are. Go
Mm,
make great music and put it in front of people. And it was just
mm,
so clarifying. And she just took that. I had taken this responsibility that this person on Instagram was talking about, like, you know, Spotify's evil, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm feeling all this guilt and this crap, and like, I don't want to do it. And then she just took that just directly, and I'm like feeling it now. Like, as I say, she just took it off my shoulders and said, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to have this fight. Your job is to make great music and put it in front of people. Your job was to take care of sexual assault victims. Your job was to do this. Your job was to do this, to do these things. Now your job is to make great music and put it in front of people.
Let's talk about some of the specifics of what you're doing. I'm sure a lot of horn players are really interested to understand exactly how you set up, what you run things through. I'm imagining you use a clip-on mic and then what?
Yeah. So I can actually walk you through it if you don't mind a little bit of shaky cam. We can do that. So I have the horn. And yes, the microphone clips onto the horn bell.
Which mic is
I
that?
wear a neck strap with the horn. This is a Shure
Oh yeah.
Beta 98H, or as they say in
Okay.
Australia, H. Um, and I've had this for years. Um, because I used to work with an SM58 behind me on a little stand, but I move too much because I'm a chamber player. So I have that. That goes into the horn, and then this I'll be gentle. I'll turn you slightly. So then that. Hi. That is routing directly through one of these cables into this, which is an Ableton Push 3 um, controller. Its main job is a MIDI controller, but it is also an audio interface. So that is the microphone's going into that, and then everything goes into this interface, which then goes into the computer, which I'm talking to you on now.
And you're working on Ableton on the computer as well?
Everybody's, yeah, I do everything through Ableton. I use very,
Cool.
very few other things. I use stock Ableton stuff unless in the extremely rare. I just value stability so much. Stability is so important to me, and I don't want to lose it. This is a Novation launch key, which is going again into the computer. I process the horn sound inside. You can imagine the clip-on mic doesn't sound very good. You know, it depends how nerdy you want to get. So I basically, I it's kind of three steps. I EQ it first. I take the extremes out because that's ridiculous. And then there's a little bubble around. I'd have to look up the hertz because I set it up ages ago. There's just a little bubble down to take some of the tinniness out. Then there's a pretty small reverb on the horn, and then that reverb is EQ'd in a, a similar way. So the reverb has its own EQing. Because if your viewers are familiar with dry wet settings, when you're working on software audio effects, you think of it as a river. I'll try to describe well. So basically, you think of it as a river going, flowing, and it comes from a source, which in our case, it's me playing French horn, hopefully well. And then you put things in front of it, right? You put a device in front of it. And what that'll do is that modifies, it changes the color of the river, right? And a dry wet setting basically tells you what color the river will be. So you'll have, if 100% wet will totally affect the sound completely, and it is completely changed and 100% modified by the device. A 50-50 will be half and half. It'll be half the raw signal coming out of the microphone and then half modified. And then you can change those percentages. So I EQ the reverb at the reverb's at like 30% dry wet, and then I EQ that reverb as well. So it's kind of like three layers if you think about it. Then you have your own mixing, mastering and stuff. I have the thing I'm most proud of that I do in my electronics is I don't amplify my work. When you go to a Brian Cam show live, you don't hear any amplified horn. You hear me playing. It's just what I do. And then the loopers and stuff all come from this muted channel called signal horn, which is the audience does not hear that. And then the thing. So if you go hear one of those cello loopers, they are mixing everything live. So they'll play cello, and their cello's coming out of the speakers, and then they mix that there. I don't do that. I do it. I kind of come from it from a chamber music background. That it's my regular horn sound, and then I mix the electronics to be a complement to that.
But if you're looping your horn, that's got to be coming through. If
Correct. So the horn loops will come out of the speakers. But
Yeah.
when I'm playing the horn, that doesn't come out of the speakers. So what you'll hear is basically, if I just did one like 4-bar loop, you'd hear me playing for 4 bars, and the speakers would be totally silent. Then I would stop playing, and then the speakers would take over. And it's balanced in a way that you hear me playing, and then the speaker. It's separate, which it's a pretty small detail, and it doesn't matter online because everything's coming out anyway. But it's a detail I'm really proud of, that it's still you're hearing the bounced horn coming out of the bell into the room, which is why I asked for a 3-hour sound check.
Yeah. Do you ever run into feedback issues?
I'm so glad you asked that. The show that I'm doing, Color Kinematics, is actually about feedback. So I am creating feedback intentionally and then manipulating it live. And working with that, which is just so exciting. So feedback, like when it goes way too hard. everyone hears it before it happens, that little bit of whoosh. I am doing that and then capturing that and then
Huh.
making it feedback more, feedback less, feedback more, feedback less, and then I'll put an audio in effect and like split it into two pitches and bring it back together. And I'm doing all that while playing horn and doing all that. I'm terribly excited about that. I don't struggle with. I want to knock on wood. I don't struggle with negative feedback very much during the show because I am behind the speaker. Um, I personally am
Uh-huh.
behind the speaker, and then the horn's not amplified, so
Yeah.
the you don't have that issue, which is I'm really fortunate to have designed the show that way. Feedback's not really a struggle for me very much because you hear it coming and you just move the speaker, and you're in good shape.
Pro tip, stand behind the speaker. Your final topic here. You're a very creative person. You're an out of the box thinker. You're doing really unique stuff with the horn. I imagine that you're not doing the singer routine or the Farkas routine as your nuts and bolts practice. How do you approach your daily work on the horn to stay in shape, but to satisfy your need for creativity and authenticity?
I'm prepared to be disappointed. I have the most boring routine in the world, and I'm really proud of that. I've gone to auditions and I've heard some incredible things that some of our peers can do. I can't do those things. I have four exercises that I do. The first one is just a regular old slow lip slur exercise. That's kind of combination lip slurs and long tones. Then exercise number two is I play a half note and then wait for two beats, and then play a half note on the same beat, and then wait for two beats, and then play a whole note, and then wait, and then go up a half step and go all the way up and all the way down. Um, and then I play five note scales all the way up into space and all the way back down. Um, After that whole routine is done, and I have a few other things that I do based on how I'm feeling, but that's the um, I am a creative guy, but I approach the horn pretty athletically. Um, in meaning, I look at my warm up as like a stretching routine before I go play tennis or something. And I think I get that from the military, where it's I was in that brass quintet, and you're tired and sick and sleepy and cold or whatever, and you have to go do the job. And I slowly developed this routine. When I was really I think I was playing my best brass quintet in 2019, and I had that routine was 53 minutes, and it was like pretty on the nail. Like this is what I do.
You do that every day.
Yeah, pretty much. And now what I do, I don't do the 50. It's not 53 minutes anymore. It's since delved. I've lost my discipline since I left the military and grew my hair out. But now I do a similar routine, and then eventually I'll go sit down at the electronics and improvise and have the whole. As I get into the, I think I scratch my creativity once I'm down in the chair, and I'll do like some looper stuff uh, and sometimes I'll like do my routine with the looper on, and I'll
Yeah.
like loop my routine and have a lot of fun with that. But really, the horn I approach pretty in the same way that I did in the military. It's I need my body to work right, and that's what my warm up's meant to do. And then I'll take care of the itchiness that I have in the creativity a little later. My students go through a process. It's funny because I really believe in having a routine that works for you. I think my routine works for a lot of people. And it comes in variations. So, like right now, I start on a C in the middle of the staff, and my lip slurs go down first, and then I work my way down the fingerings. I have a student right now, she's working on her high notes. She starts there, lip slurs down, and then starts by going up to thumb 2 3 and then works her way up. So based on where you are, there are modifications to what you do. She went through this process where she would jump straight into a practice, and then she'd be mad that she wasn't playing well, or she'd do half the routine or whatever. And then she came to a lesson one week and she was like, I did exercise number one and number two every day. Holy crap, why didn't you say this was so effective? And I was like,
Uh,
there we are. I feel like a warm up is the role of it is to empower you to do what it is you want to do.
Empower you to do what you want to do and leave it at that. Are there any horn players right now that are really inspiring you that you're learning from?
I love Stefan Dorr. Um, I'll drink too much wine and go just like listen to his videos and go, man, that's
Uh,
something else. There's the Stefan Dorr wow video on YouTube. If you Google Stefan Dorr wow with like a lot of O's and W's, there's it's him doing Mahler five. I just think he's the tops, and I love his sound, and I want to sound like him. And in Hawaii, Anna sounds. I don't think I can sound like Anna, but she sounds incredible. She's just that big, dark, amazing movie sound.
oh, nice, nice. You said that you're a big believer in mindfulness, yet you also said that you think most musicians practice too mindfully. Can you explain that?
I think that along the lines of just do it,
Hmm.
um, just go do that thing. Um, I have had so many practice routines where I haven't been feeling it, and I just get in there and play like a jerk, and I want to play high notes, wee, or like I want to play real fast. Just do stuff. Just do stuff on the horn. Like I said earlier, the point of the warm up is to enable your body to do what you need it to do. If you're playing the horn, you're probably getting better at playing the horn, and you should probably have a list of things that you want to get better at. But I've run into so many students who have this like 75 stage plan of I want to do this, and then for 3 minutes I do this, and it's overwhelming, and it must suck, and it can't be like comfortable. So I think if people took a day out of the routine to just do some crappy practice, just run the tunes they like, I think they'd be better off.
I think
Just just
there's a
do some
lot of
stuff.
value in that. To play the devil's advocate, one of my most productive years was 2019. I was a full-time software engineer with Evernote. I was running my startup Modacity in the background, and I was subbing with San Francisco Symphony, Philadelphia Orchestra, and orchestras around California, and I was changing my embouchure at the same time in a really substantial way. Spent New Year's in Thailand with some friends of mine, and I spent 5 days planning my practice routine for that year. And I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday periodized and planned with spaced repetition, a theme for each day. Like Monday was alignment, physical ease. Tuesday was tone and dynamics. Like I had themes revisited, stacked, and I did it. It was a great year of practice.
I want to draw a line between mindfulness and planning.
Okay.
Um, I think planning is amazing, and people could do well to plan more.
Mm,
I think the sitting there, if you're in the chair with the horn at that point, either the planning needs to take care of you.
yeah.
I don't think that
Yeah.
is the time to be super mindful and build it then.
I think when you say mindful, in this case, you're talking about being in your head or being analytical or
Sure.
ruminating versus
Yeah,
present.
being
Yeah.
too inside here
Hmm.
during the practice session.
Yeah.
Let that engineer, let the past. I wrote an article for IHS about this. Let the engineer in your head tell you what to do. All right, we're going to take this turn real tight. Okay, right, and you go do the plan that you wrote earlier. That's fantastic, fantastic. Write a plan and
Oh,
work that plan.
cool. Are there ways that people can hear your music easily online?
I'm Brian KM, uh, which is the I'm not I am.
I
This is going to be
am
terrible, and you'll put it in the
I,
notes.
the letter
I
I, the
am
letter
Brian
M.
KM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am Brian Cam is a super cool bodybuilder dude, and you should follow him because he's doing great. He's swole. He's been working really hard, so go follow him too. But it's I'm Brian Cam. I am Brian Cam. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Spotify, as we discussed. I'm on Instagram most prominently. I post on TikTok. Those are the places where I am. I have a website which is briankam.com. It's just go find Brian Cam. Brian Cam spelled with a B and an I, and hopefully you'll see me around making some weird sounds. And I'd encourage your audience to talk to me because everybody deserves a no. So I'll say hi back.
Oh, yeah. And if anybody wants to study with you, whether it's online or in person, do you offer that people can reach out via your website?
I totally do. Yeah, I have a teaching page on my website, and I love teaching, and teaching's super great. And I want to help you get better at what it is you do and the way you need to do it.
Beautiful. If we could put one thing, I want you to think about the world of horn playing and brass playing for a second, maybe even just the world of music. And you get a billboard and you get to put one thing on the billboard. What do you put on there?
Be less mean. There's a
Ah,
lot of meanness that we've got in our community, and I think that's a real shame.
and it's
And
internalized too.
it comes from a place of fear. The meanest players I've met are the players who are insecure about what they're doing. Um, so be more confident, be less mean. And those sound like opposite ideas, but they're not. They're the same idea. Um, don't be mean to people. Just don't do it. There's so much, and I wish it would stop.
There we have it. Thanks for your care of kindness, music, creativity, fundamentals.
Sorry, I talked your ears off.
All good. All good. Thanks for sharing.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast. This episode is brought to you by High Range Magic, my online program that helps horn players liberate their high range as well as reach new levels of relaxation and ease throughout the full range of the horn, and also to kind of reclaim a beautiful new paradigm of relationship and mindset with the instrument. If that sounds interesting to you, head over to highrangemagic.com and you can register to watch the free masterclass I have, How to Confidently Enjoy a 4 Plus Octave Range Without Pain, Overthinking, or Constantly Practicing. That's over at highrangemagic.com. Thanks again.